Reddit us/am I the ass? Stories. Am I the ass for insisting my son cook dinner once a week? Submitted by user It's just one meal. I'm a 43-year-old woman and have two sons. Adam is 17 and James is 15. Adam showed an interest in cooking from a young age and is very talented. He makes dinner for the family 2-3x a week because he enjoys it and it gives him an opportunity to try new recipes. I generally cook the rest of the time, unless it's summer and my husband insists on grilling every day. James was not particularly interested in learning to cook. I did try to teach him the kitchen basics and he can make himself a sandwich and simple things, but he'd rather grab an apple than make himself a meal. A few months back, James began asking Adam in the afternoons to make him a snack, something homemade, and sometimes he'll do it if he's in the mood, but more often than not, he's bothered by the daily requests. I asked James why he can't make a sandwich or have a snack. We always have things like hummus, yogurt, pita, sliced veggies, salsa, and chips. I make baked goods often, a good array of decent snacks. He could make a smoothie, there's always frozen fruit. But he said Adam is just better at it and he doesn't know how to make it as good. I felt this was a sign I had dropped the ball, so I decided that James would take over making the family dinner once a week. It didn't have to be fancy, but it had to be at least somewhat balanced and filling. For example, yesterday, he made grilled cheese sandwiches, a salad and tomato soup, with a side of cut strawberries. A very simple but good meal. Packaged soups and things are fine as long as that's not all. I helped him with the meal planning and then I would work at the dining room table nearby in case he needed help. He hasn't enjoyed this, but I've still kept on it because it's a really important life skill. Feeding yourself isn't optional. He's been complaining to my mother, his grandma, and she's been calling me to tell me I've let a punishment go on too long. But it's not meant to be that. It's life skill training, and I was very clear with James that this was a permanent change, not a temporary punishment. But she made me feel like an absolutely terrible mother forcing unpleasant chores on my children. I tried to point out that my own brother is a grown man that lives on takeout because she never taught him to cook and I didn't want that to be James one day. She hung up on me. My husband is in full support of our new routine, but still, nothing takes you down a peg like being yelled at by your mother, so I'm looking for some other opinions. Is it really that bad? Am I the ass for telling my husband I don't want him going to the strip club? Submitted by user Dusty Sunglasses. My husband and I have been together for 7 years, married for 4. This past week we got into an argument over something that I thought was silly. I said something about him being lazy, which he took personally. I understood I hurt his feelings, took accountability, and apologized. He didn't want to talk to me for about a couple days. Friday night comes and he decides to go out with his brother. Fine. I didn't press him about it that night, and the next morning he finally comes up to me and apologizes for the way he's been acting. I accept his apology, and ask him how his night went. He says he went to go dancing at the club, had a few drinks and stayed up with his brother. He didn't come home until about 3 to 4 a.m. A few days later, I was using his Google Maps and it shows that he looked up directions to the strip club. This made me upset, as I had asked him how his night went and he completely omitted the fact he went there. So I decided to confront him. I asked him if he had gone to the strip club and he said yes. I then asked him why. Didn't you tell me? And he says because I didn't want to. I told him I didn't like that he went to the strip club behind my back to look at and spend money on other women, and he immediately gets defensive and starts telling me why does it matter? I should be able to do whatever I want, and he even goes on to say who am I to take away experiences from him and tell him what he can and can't do. He says it was because he needed a safe and quiet place to be able to vent to his brother. At this point, I'm more upset at the fact that he got defensive and dismissed the way I felt. I told him he knew it was wrong if he never told me about it in the first place, and he goes back to being defensive. We're both pretty open with each other and don't keep secrets, so the fact that he kept it behind my back until I confronted him hurt me. At this point I feel like the situation hasn't been fixed, and I don't think I'm ready to get into an argument again. Am I the ass for yelling at my boyfriend in front of his daughter? Submitted by user Glittering Act 7753. We both list records for sale online for an old man, M, who has a massive vinyl collection. One day, we were at M's house, and I was calculating commissions for records we listed that sold. His daughter, 16, was there. I keep a meticulous list of everything I list and the prices on the laptop we use. When I told him the commission totals, he asked how I knew which ones I listed, to which I reminded him of the list. He doesn't keep lists, or if he does it sporadically. He asked to see the list, so I showed him. He saw the date of the note was that day, and accused me of just making the list now, even though I've told him I keep a list of the records I listed multiple times before. This really pissed me off, so I yelled, because I listed records today. The notepad auto-updates every time you add to it. He then said, I can't believe you're yelling at me in front of my daughter. You've been yelling at me all day. I don't want to hang out with you anymore. ETA, I hadn't been yelling at him all day. I immediately burst into tears, grabbed my purse, and made my way to the door. He then said, wow, really, you're leaving? So I replied, shaking and sobbing, you said you don't want to hang out with me anymore, so I'm going home. So he said, yeah, 'cause you're yelling at me in front of my daughter. So, I said, I'm sorry. He said, I forgive you, but in an angry, dismissive tone. He then asked me to calculate the commissions for the records he listed as well, which I didn't know that he wanted me to do. We usually calculate our own, and proceeded to rush me on it because he had to go get his other child from work and leave soon. So, I offered to walk home when I was done, so I didn't hold him up. He then said, no, I will give you a ride. It's dangerous out there. I finished calculating, and M gave us cash to split up amongst ourselves. So we go out and drive. His daughter sat in the front, then chatted without pauses, and the one time I tried to participate, he accused me of interrupting. When his other daughter, 21, gets in the car, he does not even acknowledge her at all and continues chatting with his youngest excitedly up front. I whispered to her from the back seat to ask her how work was. When I got home, I gave him his portion of the cash, and it was $4 more than his total commissions were. I asked him if he had any change. He then asked me when I was going to give him gas money. He gives me rides a lot and I hadn't given him gas money in a while, so I told him to keep the change. He then said, sarcastically, oh, wow, thanks a lot. I got upset, so I said, here, take all my commission. I think it had been like 3 weeks or something like that since I gave him any gas money. My portion was $23. Total. He got mad and said, no, I don't want to deal with this bullshit. I started crying, and we went to bed, and he held me and we had make-up sex, but never really talked about anything. The next day, we acted like it didn't happen. Am I the ass for not lending my sister $200? Submitted by user oldpoem7625. AITA for not lending my sister $200. I am a 35-year-old female and have a sister who is 40 who ever since we were children was not very good with managing her money, where I am the opposite and like to be frugal. Since we were children, she would always use up all her monthly allowances and ask me for money. She would eventually give the money back after I asked for it to be returned several times. This continued throughout our childhood. She stopped asking for money once I fell into a depression after college and could not work for a couple of years, knowing that I would not have any to lend her. I have recovered now and worked hard for the next 10 years to build a career where I can now say I am comfortable, not rich but comfortable, and now my sister has begun asking for money. In the past she has somehow gotten my parents to give her $30,000 to start her own business, $10,000 to clear her credit card debt, and when she got married, she got a house and a car from her father-in-law which would lift her and her husband from great financial burden, but she does not like to live below her means. A few years ago, she had asked my retired parents and I to buy my niece a custom-made surfboard for her to enter competitions at the age of 10, costing us $1,300. My niece loves surfing and we wanted to support her, so we gave her a surfboard even though other kids in her club use the club's surfboards. Now that she is in junior high, she wants a new custom board that would cost $3,000, and my sister has been hinting that she would like my parents and I to pay. I love my niece and I want to support her, but she's only 13 and she can use the club's surfboard for free. I don't think it's reasonable for her to get such an expensive gift at such a young age. If they can't afford it, they shouldn't get it. For the past few years, my sister has been saying that her business has not been going too well and that her income is very unstable. I think that she should get a different job where she can have a stable and decent income, but she likes to work on her terms. A few days ago, she asked me for $200 to pay for my niece's piano class fee. She said that she had not asked her husband but asked me first. I told her to ask her husband first and politely declined, even though $200 is not a lot for me. I just know that if I lend her $200 now, she will start asking for more. I know that she may be struggling financially, but I thought that she should talk to her husband first, as it was about their daughter's fees. I declined to lend her money that I can technically give her, and I have not been able to sleep well, thinking I may have been too cold. AITA for firing one of my babysitting clients. Submitted by user low explanation 5788. I babysit part-time and have been for the past 2 years. In that time I've gotten some regular families who'll have my babysit. One of my first clients was Mackenzie. She's 21 and has a 5-year-old daughter, Ally. Her mom and my mom are close friends. She was one of my first clients, and because I was doing it as a favor to my mom, I gave her a reduced rate, $10 per hour. My other clients pay $15 to $25 per hour depending on how many kids they have and the kid's age. Recently I decided to fire Mackenzie and stop babysitting Ally. I babysit Ally at least once a week, if not more. Over the summer I was basically Mackenzie's daycare plan, where I agreed to take care of Ally while she worked for $200 per week. I'd also babysit her on the weekends a lot so Mackenzie could go party with her friends. After a few weeks of her coming home hours later with no text or warning, I told her that I'd begin charging her double for every hour she's late. So if I was supposed to babysit from 7 to 11, that'd be $40. But if I was supposed to babysit 7 to 11 and she came home at 3 a.m., then she'd need to pay me $120. She wouldn't pay more than the $40 unless her mom made her pay, or her mom would pay it for her. She kept coming home late and began to stop paying me. I kept track and sent her a text telling her that unless she paid me what she owed, I wouldn't babysit Ally at all. She did after 2 weeks of me not answering any requests to babysit, but I decided to fire her anyway and tell her I won't be babysitting for her again because of her refusal to pay me. Also, without babysitting Ally so much, I can babysit for other people who pay more. My mom and her mom are really upset since she can't afford other childcare, and they keep telling me just to babysit for her and they'll make sure that she pays me or pays me for her.